Secret School, Chapter 13. Excuse me. That evening, after her chores and grading were done, Ida worked late into the night. She began with her reader, focusing on sections she had not read before. She studied grammar and tried to memorize passages, working in particular on a psalm of life. That's in quotation marks because that's our punctuation. If it's a poem, it's supposed to be in quotation marks. A poem by Longfellow. Longfellow. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. In the morning, she parsed sentences in her head as she milked Bluebell. At the breakfast table, she did math problems, her eyes glued to her textbook. Though her father frowned at her, he said nothing. As she and Felix drove to school, she recited the Longfellow poem. Tell me not in mournful numbers, break, clutch! Life is but not so hard, an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumbers. Break! And things are not, break, clutch, what they seem. Life is real, break! Life is earnest, and the great clutch is not his goal. Dust thou art, to dust return. Break! Was not break, clutch, spoken of the soul. We're here. In school, right after the morning exercises, Ida stood before the class. Anyone know where Herbert is? Working, probably, Charlie said. I need to know, Ida said, if our school is still secret. How many of you told your parents what we're doing? I did, she informed them. Had to. Tom was the first one to respond. Then, shyly, Natasha raised her hand. Charlie said, I just told ours the school was going on. Didn't say you were teacher. Excuse me. I'd explained what had happened when she went to Herbert's place and spoke to Mr. Bixler. By mistake, I told him I was the teacher, she said. He didn't like it. Then she told him what Mr. Bixler had said to her mother. Think he really will say something to Mr. Jordan? Natasha asked. My dad says Mr. Bixler isn't really mean, Susie put in, just unhappy all the time. My ma said the same, Ida agreed. I don't know what he'll do, but if you haven't already, I guess you better let your parents know everything. Just try to get them not to tell anyone else, especially Mr. Jordan. She sighed. Guess we better get on with our own work, Ida said. Can't be any shirking if we're going to pass those exams. Shirk, that's a vocabulary word. Ida went to her desk and consulted her notebook, then gave instructions to the class. Tom, sentence parsing. Mary, penmanship. In particular, your G's, Q's, and F's. Susie, I'd like you to help her. Natasha, when you're ready, I'll quiz you on the consonants. Charlie, reading. Felix, you start off with a recitation of your ABCs. Everybody set to work. More than before, Ida put everyone to tasks that they could do on their own. While they set about their assignments, she sat at her desk, secretly working on her own studies, in particular, math. Secret school, secret student, she thought. Halfway through the morning, Ida walked up to Tom's desk. Yes, Miss Bidson, he said. Tom, Ida said, whispering so no one else would hear. I'm not teaching now. I'm studying for myself. How do you do this kind of math problem? Tom looked at her, pushed the hair away from his forehead, and gave her a wink. Tom, she whispered, please. Okay, better sit down, though, he said, and showed her how to do the problem. Thank you, she whispered, giving him a grateful look when he was done. In the evening, as soon as she got home, Ida raced through her chores, retreated to the loft, and worked on her studies. After dinner, she did the same. Her mother found Ida in bed. By the glowing light of a kerosene lamp, she was rereading the school's frayed copy of Great Orations by Great Men. That's written in italics. Again, because it's the title of a book. Ida, it's very late. You're pushing yourself too hard. What's the good of me being teacher? Ida replied with anguish, vocabulary word anguish. If everyone else passes the exams and I don't, it'll be the last time I ever teach. Honey, I'm sure you know more than you think. Ma, the exam is a couple of weeks away, but I have no idea what's on it. I have to know everything. Honey, I don't want you getting sick. Won't be good for anything then. I'll be a whole lot sicker if I don't get to high school. Mrs. Bidson sighed. and retreated down the ladder. The next day, school started as usual. As the hours passed, it grew darker and darker. Recess was held, but the thunderheads gathering around the mountain peaks made it clear that a big storm was coming. We'd best light the lamps and get in some dry wood, Ida said. Right after lunch, the storm struck. It came softly at first, then quickly shifted into roof-rattling hail. I remember this chapter. The children gazed around, watching the large hailstones bounce off the windows. Tom raised his hand. Yes, Tom? Can I bring in Ruckus? He gets panicky in hailstorms. You remember who Ruckus is? Ida frowned. You never did when it stormed before. Tom nodded toward the windows. That's big hail. Very well, I suppose it's all right. But I don't want that mule interfering. Interfering? Vocabulary word. Tom dashed out. Moments later he returned, leading the mule through the schoolhouse door. He looked around, then backed the animal into the boys' wardrobe and shut the door. With the lamps on and the stove hot, it was cozy in the schoolhouse. The students stayed attentive to their work. Now and again in the wardrobe the mule stamped and occasionally but no one paid him any mind. It was still raining that afternoon when Mary, standing before the class, got ready to recite a poem. The rest of the children were listening intently. The Song of the Bee, Mary said. This is the song of the bee. His legs are of yellow, a jolly good fellow, and yet a great worker is he. In days that are sunny, the door burst open. Mr. Jordan stood there, his yellow rain slicker dripping wet. So it's true what I was told. You are meeting here. Well, this school is supposed to be closed. And as of this moment, it is closed. Now all of you get on home where you belong. No one moved. Suddenly, from the boys' wardrobe, there came a loud stamping. Puzzled, Mr. Jordan opened the wardrobe door. The mule stuck his head out and in Mr. Jordan's face. And get this mule out of here, Mr. Jordan cried.